Hmm.
Okay, we should be ready to go. Go ahead, Chuck.
Are you back on?
Take it
Okay.
all. Take it.
Hi, my name's Chuck Fall, and I'm with Truth Action Project. And tonight is a campfire event where we chat and talk about the themes covered on our Tuesday night forum. We had Bruce Douglas from Hawaii, and he presented on geoengineering, and Robert Brame presented on these anomalous fire events and the evidence of microwave technology. Bruce Douglas has suggested a plasma technology has been deployed in these situations. And this, as a disclaimer to TAP, this events of our forums and our campfire are not, quote, TAP positions. They are the positions of the participants and so on. And everybody speaks for themselves. But our campfire event is a place for political truthers to be together and talk about, in today's topic, the problem of geoengineering, chemtrails. And I will just say this, that when we set up this forum, the campfire, we actually tried to get what's his name?
Dane Wigington. Oh,
Michael Lee,
Mike Lee. Mm-hmm.
Mike Lee, and to talk on the geoengineering. Um, we didn't get him
Jim.
on, but we noticed that there's kind of debate about what's really going on from these things. From Dane Wigington and his movie The Dimming, there's a very clear argument that the federal government, is doing this to us. From Mike Lee, you get an explanation that the chemtrails are, in fact, the consequence of airplanes flying through effluent. No, actually, Mike Lee's argument is that the metals are in the fuel itself. Mike Lee doesn't dispute that the federal government doesn't do some geoengineering, call it weather control. But back to our own Bruce Douglas, who was our guest, um, um, represents, in his opinion, that that it's weather warfare that's going on, not so much geoengineering. And we can debate all of that, and all of this is up for discussion. I'd like to acknowledge William Douglas. If you want to share your screen, you did a 7-minute short for us. You took the initiative. You contributed to our video collection, as it were, and that this is something that we've been counseled to do, to lift out the choice kind of nuggets of truth that come from our forums and our campfire discussions. And I'd welcome you to just make some remarks. But this is talk around, so we can raise our hands on the computer. You can just jump right in since there's only a few of us. But there you are, William. Just say hi, and where are you from, and what's your angle on the political truth?
Well, I wanted to make it in for today's discussion, and I had a few things going on in the background, so I was just covering all those bases too. So, I have a lot of different opinions on the necessary process for engaging and creating a movement where change can be to some effect. So, and I see that that's what TAP is involved with doing as well. I'm really excited to see that other people have taken the initiative to get legislation started to begin the process for banning these stratospheric aerosol injections. And I think that that's amazing to see, because it's showing that we can have an effect And who knows how these things will be enforced in the near future, but I know there's going to be a process for that. And that's amazing seeing that TAP is at least facilitating a space where these discussions can be had. And I also was like really excited to share who I found being Harold Kaltz-Vella. He's a German physicist, and he's gone into great length explaining some of the agenda behind the whole chemtrail programs, but digest. And it's a pretty deep dive, and it takes a little bit of time to really understand what he's presenting. And even then, you have to do so with a grain of salt, because who knows if who's telling the truth and who isn't anymore. But I'm
Well,
here in Oregon. I came from California originally, and I know you're also a fellow Oregonian.
mhm.
Is that correct?
Yeah, where are you for what section of this of the
Right
vast?
above Grants Pass. Right above Grants Pass.
Okay, so you're on the I-5 corridor, south of
correct.
Willamette Valley. You're probably in Rogue River Valley, or are you in the Umpqua River Valley?
A little bit higher up by the Kalmiopsis.
Kalmiopsis.
The
Oh, so
Kalmiopsis Wilderness.
they got torched heavily by a wildfire,
Right.
didn't
That's why I got involved with firefighting now. I am now a registered wildland firefighter. So
Oh, so you found Robert Brame's analysis very interesting.
I sure did. And going from that with what else was presented in the Lahaina presentation, that all these things are all working in harmony. I'm feeling like we're building something that is very harmonious and is running right in line with the narrative that the zeitgeist of the generations that are around our own are all they're all picking it up around the same time. And I'm happy that instead of us waiting until the moment when it's too late to talk about these things, we're keeping the narrative fresh, and we're doing it now while it's relevant. So thank you very much for that.
So William, just I'm going to pick your brains a couple of minutes here. What is in the zeitgeist that you feel that TAP is responding to, that you're responding, that we're all in the truth movement responding to? What is in the zeitgeist that we're responding to?
Well, there's a sense of urgency to get something done, but there's also a feeling that there has been too much apathy, and that things have become stale, and a lot of people are trying really hard to get through give me 1 second. People are trying really hard to get through and navigate through all the different propaganda, the counterintelligence efforts, because this is a big industry. There's a lot of effort and energy spent in trying to confuse people, discourage them. And so with us having this new sense of confidence and sense of ability, and the youth and different generations hoping to see something that's real and genuine, it's timing up very nicely. And to also say that everybody is focusing on this chemtrail program right now, or the stratospheric aerosol injection program. And it's a good moment where we can begin to get everybody together so that we can avoid redundancy, and we can get people who are really excited to learn about what's really going on and how can I have an effective part in stopping it. I see that's where we're starting to fill a void, because yes, there's been movements for a very long time. They're just not moving. And I'm beginning to see TAP to step up and take accountability and responsibility for at least facilitating opportunities for people to have movement and action. And people really want that. And they're getting discouraged, but we're going to try to trump that, use some of its own energy against them, that whole counterintelligence, that whole propaganda energy. And we're going to try to use our maturity, our experience, and our discernment to try to streamline this process for a lot of people who I think are really excited, because there's so many spaces going on. But something you hear at the end of most spaces is, well, I just spent 5 hours here. Now what? And I think at the end of our presentations, there isn't a now what. It's all right, now let's get to this. So thank you.
So just to pick on you a little bit more, William, I invite you to be, so TAP is basically an activist media organization, but we're not just media, because we're actually truthers, and as truthers, we're trying to get to the friggin' truth. And I think a lot of us there's consensus that there is some fire of indignation at being lied to. Are there other issues other than the geoengineering and that you think are significant for the truth movement to be paying attention to? in addition to the 9/11 truth, of course, for what that's worth, we're 20 years past. For the JFK truth, for what that's worth, we're 3 generations past that. What other truth issues, big lies, other than the chemtrail business or even the directed energy weapon business, which is kind of recent event in this movement, what other issues do you think are in the zeitgeist and have some currency, something that we could build movement around, in your opinion?
So between the avoidance of accountability for other generations that preceded our own and also our own, I saw a moment when different representatives of our great nation were being questioned by some sweet little old ladies with pink shirts about what is going to be done and what can be done regarding the whole freezing up of this type of destruction that we're seeing taking place in Africa, in the portion of the Middle East that we, is hitting the headlines constantly right now. And the escalation is only growing. And these women were what the kind of response they received from our representatives was, "You're a terrorist. I don't need to talk to you." And they said, for asking for you to stop funding people who are causing the type of harm and violence that you're seeing cause, clearly you're seeing this happening, you're going to turn around and call us terrorists. And this is an older generation that came before my own. But I know that is disheartening to a great number of young men and women who don't want to see violence, regardless of the nature or the agenda or the intentions that are the excuses behind it. And so I'm seeing now that people, they've lived with this for 20 plus years. Some people have been born after September 11, 2001, and they've lived in a world where this is the norm. And it's creating a state of mind collectively, which will continue to be greatly damaging to future generations of not just Americans, but the people the world over. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I hate to have to state it, but there was another immolation today.
No, I didn't.
This isn't a partisan affair because
What
I'm
happened?
sorry.
What
Yes.
happened?
And it's not a partisan affair. From my understanding, somebody self-immolated on the trumps of the court stairway of the Trump trial this afternoon.
Oh my God.
On the steps leading into the
So,
trial
okay.
where Donald Trump is being seen
Okay.
and heard for his case.
William, let me just jump back in then. What I hear you saying is, in the
Yeah.
zeitgeist for what is in a kind of truth movement is the truth around the American military industrial project abroad, and whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's now the Israel-Gaza event is really galvanizing some people. Is that kind of what there's a realization around the problem of military industrial complex? Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. And that also there's no clear direction to turn because there isn't to maintain the level of nonpartisan that we have. They themselves feel like there isn't a good choice. There isn't somebody who's going to lead us out of this scenario. It's only going to lead us further and escalate further and further into more conflict and destruction. And people don't want to be drawn into that. And I think for one last example is that they've seen the type of quality of life, how quickly the quality of life has changed here in the States. And yet we're still pouring out resources to other countries as quickly as we can, but we're not seeing that same attention and energy here for our own country. And they're seeing that, and they will realize that it's going to cause us great harm in the end. Thank you very much, y'all.
Okay, so I'll thank you, William. I feel I'm getting to know you, and I appreciate you sharing. And I'll just kind of riff off of your remark about people not knowing where kind of to turn or where to go or finding a political home. And I know that what was intriguing about having Justin Harvey as our guest at Tuesday's forum was his articulation of a truther politics. And 40% of Americans don't have a political home. I think you could fairly say, in other words, unaffiliated. And there's a huge levels of distrust of government. There is a fear of government corruption, which is actually recorded in a study by a professor at Chapman University. 60% of Americans are, quote, afraid of government corruption, which is part of zeitgeist that TAP can respond to, as TAP is responding to. I mean, TAP's part of zeitgeist. TAP is speaking into this world of big lies and of hegemonic imperial powers, of military industrial complex hegemony, and all of the stuff. So I have a John has his hand up. I am interested in the independent political movement, and so is Bruce Stanley, and he's brought that in, and maybe we can riff off of that at some point. But I do want to talk about plasma tech, though. John, what are you thinking?
Okay, I'm thinking that what we've put together after some time in our Green Renaissance paper, the mission statement and positions, is a good place to call people to home.
Yeah,
That is a truth document.
that's true.
And I would like to get that out widely and see, as I say, throw it up on the wall or raise it up on the flagpole and see how many people salute. I think it's very well done. It might need a little tweaking because it was done maybe a year and a half ago. But I think we need to revisit that and then get it out broadly and say, hey, folks, if you feel homeless politically, and here are the issues, bing, 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 bing. If you can relate, come join us. Well,
so Green Renaissance Sovereign Rights Movement is an organization John and I participate in. It holds, it's kind of a think tank. It holds weekly meetings, and we'll post a link into the chat. And this so what John is responding to is the theme of, do people in the truther movement really have political home? And I'll just say that I'm a green libertarian in the Green Party who's advancing a green liberty sensibility, and the foundational premise of the green liberty premise, and you might be interested in this, Michael, is well, one, the mission is a liberation coalition. We need to draw in people who recognize that there's something profoundly wrong in society today. And the action provisions for green liberty is accountability, transparency, and protection for whistleblowers. Because if we don't have accountability, transparency, and protection for whistleblowers, the corrosive rot of corruption in our republic will only get worse. And it's so bad as it is. So maybe tonight we can talk about that independent political movement, because our guests are the Hawaiian, Bruce Douglas and Paul Deslauriers, are frontline political people. They are engaged in building out their county representatives, and these are people that don't recoil at the conversation we're having right now. So I'm going to find, and maybe John, could you go to the Green Renaissance webpage and then post that into the chat? And at some point we could share screen and just, start exploring stuff. But what else is on people's mind? What are people taking away from, I mean, maybe you're feeling strongly like, what's the truth about chemtrails?
Real quick, in answer to your question, quick. I don't know how to do that and still stay engaged with this conversation. It's like one or the other. So let somebody else.
John, stay with the point. Please share. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, no, about you were asking if I can find the Green Renaissance and post it onto the screen, and I said I can't do that without getting out of this conversation.
Okay. No. I asked you a technical thing. Don't worry, John. I'm going to go find it, but okay. I'm opening it up. This is like I would like to hear from people about what I'd like to hear from Ziola. Ziola, are you here? I don't see. Oh, there you are. because there's a debate within TAP about what's true with the chemtrail. Because it's not a debate within TAP. We're just observing that Jim Lee says that the chemtrails are from the gasoline or the kerosene burned in the fuel. Bruce Douglas said that's preposterous because the kerosene fuel is pure. It's very, very, it has to be, it can't be filled with this stuff. And then he offered, and then Bruce Douglas said, well, the trails you see are the airplanes flying through sections that's filled with the nanoparticulate, the stuff. And Bruce represented that it gets up there because of these little units that pump it out, whether they're on ships. And he showed those graphic pictures of the aerosol explosion over Hawaii, very compelling. Bruce had a tremendous report that is on our Rumble. We should post that in our chat, Trina, so people can grab it if they didn't attend our forum. But and that would be a good thing to make a short out of, is just Bruce's PowerPoint thing. So William has his hand
Chuck,
up.
what did you instruct me to do? Because I was looking up a wonderful friend of mine on YouTube's channel who has phenomenal footage of what he's witnessing in our skies. So I was going to try to find a short video of his. What did you just ask me to do, please? And I'm sorry.
I simply invited you to find the Rumble link to the Tuesday forum and post it in our chat.
Oh, okay.
So
I will.
people can get it. And we should definitely do some screen
I will
sharing.
put it in. Thank you.
Thank you, Trina.
Sorry to have to ask you to repeat yourself.
I have no problem repeating myself. William, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I want to take a moment to welcome Ron Elliott as well as Michael Cook. And also, I wanted to add, what if perhaps it's all the above? What if the nature of the origins of these systems are a multiple, option answer, if it's A, B, and C? Because that's the same scenario that we found ourselves trying to work through with the events of 9/11/01, is that perhaps it wasn't just one underlying means for causing such said event. Maybe there were multiple things at play so as to create a means for creating a constant sense of infighting and division, and a hard way to determine this is the way we proceed. So, I think I heard somebody not too long ago say, I'm less concerned with the fact that these things are there and how they got there, but more so with what they're doing, how they affect us, and what we can do to stop them.
Fair enough.
Some people might also say that they're completely innocent, and maybe the government doesn't want to reveal that they're to our benefit. I don't think that's the case, because I've done great research to prove otherwise. And the last thing I wish to add, and for everyone to consider, is there are a couple of agendas like dimming the sky, limiting our ability to access, direct sunlight, limiting the ability for crops to be produced, allowing for the military industrial complex to apply things like smart dust into our environment to create monitorable grids for AI and satellite technology to create a real-time wartime environment so they could track every man, woman, child, vehicle, and building in real time. These are all wonderful applications that actually have great financial incentive. But there are other agendas that may be even deeper and darker, and we want to try to be digestible and palpable for the general public. So without us necessarily having to say this is what it is and this is what it isn't, let us make sure we know what the possibilities truly are.
I like your thinking, Michael, and I like that. And I think where there's a consent, I think we're in a consensus in TAP that we're not going to get divided over, was it a missile or an airplane in the Pentagon? Was it nanothermite or thermate? Was it even now with this whole pulsar business, this whatever this stuff is? Although I'll tell you, because of the fires in Lahaina and the similar fire signature event of those cars on the street outside of the perimeter of the trade towers at 9/11, it's clear that there were multiple events, multiple technologies being applied. I really appreciate that, and I think being open-minded and not getting divided is the critical thing for us. Bruce, we're going to go to Sherry, and then we'll go to you. And Sherry, please share, unmute.
Hi. Well, I've been working with Robert Brame. He's not on the call tonight, is he?
No, but did you see him on Tuesday?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was hoping he's going to be on, but
He's
Yeah.
dancing tonight, Sherry. Hi.
oh,
Hi,
hi.
my friend.
Hi, friend. Yes, he teaches dancing. I know. So we are working with Robert very closely. We have a little committee form called Protect and Alert. And our goal is to alert the people in California about the direct energy weapon attacks, because there's been 35 of them in our state.
Mhm.
And they're not ending, and to me, it's like little mini nukes being dropped.
Right.
Okay. Now, these are the same weapons that were used on 9/11. Like you said, I'm so glad to hear you say multiple technologies, because I've always thought that. When I first woke up in 2013 to being awake to what 9/11 was, I got adopted by San Diego 9/11 Truth. And that was one of the longest running truth groups in their country, Ted and Nelise Muga. And Nelise was friends with Judy Wood. And we always believed there was multiple technologies.
Right.
What made the firemen's boots melt until mid-December?
Right.
What's under there? Could have been a mini nuke. We don't know.
That's it.
There's no investigation. That's why I've been a fundraiser for the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, working with Mick Harrison and attorney Jane Clark and stuff to try to get to the bottom of it, But even they right now are not stepping up to the bat. I just talked to Jane about Ed Wackerman. That's my main point of talking, is Ed Wackerman right now has blood coming out his ears. And
What does that mean? Blood coming out of his ears?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. In other words, the man is very ill, and they keep taking him in and out of the doctor back to that Mariposa County Detention Center, and he shouldn't be in there at all. Now, attorney Jane Clark said we got to get another attorney for him, but how do we do that? And right now, Ed Squaglia is his attorney. And if you look him up, he's already had 2 violations against his license. It was suspended and reissued. I don't know what for. It doesn't tell you that. But the poor guy, he's going to die in there. Now, Elsa, I don't know if you know who Elsa is. She has a podcast. And we're kind of working together. There's a way in Mariposa County Jail that you can text a prisoner for 25 cents a text. And so she did that. So she's into him. Now, she just got the most beautiful letter from him explaining who he is and as a father and everything. And this guy, no way could have done that direct energy weapon attack. And so Robert Brame's trying to get deposed there. But his attorney thinks Robert Brame's a nutcase and won't have anything to do with them. So when Robert Brame showed up to the courthouse January 22nd, they looked at him, that attorney, and you could tell that he was looking straight at him. And then that defense attorney walked over to the prosecuting attorney. They both got up and walked in the back of the judge's chambers. Judge walked back out and said, this is going to be postponed to March 19th. And then they did the same thing and postponed it till July. Now that means that poor man, age 71, whose health is failing, blood coming out his ears, is going to be in jail for over a year before he gets his day in court. Now, there's got to be something anti-constitutional about that, I would think. And why couldn't they send him home on an ankle bracelet? He can't even hardly walk. And so he's got 16 counts of arson against him. There was a grand jury. They added 10 more counts against him.
So he's a patsy.
Totally. Now, this little case, guys, in Mariposa County is about direct energy weapons, really, because guess what's still there? The evidence. Now, when in the world is the evidence ever there still almost 2 years after a crime, right? Those groves of trees with needles on them and wood only burnt where the nails are, and all the evidence that Mr. Brame gave us is still there. So right. Robert Brame called the police. He's going to try to make a police report. And then he could physically say, Mr. Policeman or Mr. Fireman or Mr. Sheriff, all 3, I would think, follow me over to this street and I'll show you the evidence. It's almost a slam dunk, in my opinion. So if we can get that to happen, then that will put something else happened to these forests and these homes besides what they're telling us. At least say that. You don't have to say the word direct energy weapon. You just said something else did it. You know, and
Well,
then get other,
let's talk about, so Sherry, thank you. And let's loop.
Nobody's helping. There's only 3 little people here of our little committee, and we need help because you guys, these are the same 9/11 criminals. This is the same weapons.
Right. I think TAP is naturally should,
Bruce
be in
Douglas.
solidarity, and part of what we do would be to, basically, do media about, what's the individual's name? The 71-year-old?
Ed Wackerman.
Okay. Yeah, we
And
need to do.
I can
So
send you
just,
information. He sent in an 8-page letter about himself and drew a picture of his dog Bella and gave a picture of her laying on the bed, laying there waiting for her master. And I was just in tears. He's a
Yeah,
patsy. There's 6 other people in jail for these fires they're already in jail.
then let's loop back. Let's not, I hear you. Let's keep I'm going to pass the baton to Bruce Stanley. And I'm just telling you, let's loop back onto this whole business of what's going on. And
Yeah, but
he
my
clearly
opportunity to
Yeah.
get into the mainstream media. And then I think that'll put the stops on them. And that's why I don't think I've seen very many chemtrails lately, because I think that, Tennessee passed a law banning them and 6 other states are following. And I think they're not doing it very much.
And then let's talk about banning. Let's talk about political action. So Bruce, go for it. Unmute.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sherry.
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say I'm glad you brought this point up. It's something we really do want to clarify, which is that unlike many other issues in the truther community, the chemtrails issue, what we discovered is that among the top most respected experts, there are very sharp disagreements about, the thesis of what's causing this and, the facts behind it. And I agree, as an organization, I don't think, based on what I've seen, that we want to take a side in those debates. I think we just want to clarify, here's where the disagreements are. Here's the fact trails that, each of these credible, respected experts are pointing to, and then just allow the audience to make up their own mind. There was the disagreement between, is it commercial airliners that are producing these, right? That was Bruce Douglas's position, right? Is that at the exclusion of the possibility of, but we already know that there's the cloud seeding going on, and we have the military whistleblowers. So it would appear that, so I'm glad that Liam brought that up, is that it appears there's enough of an evidence trail here that it's likely we're dealing with an overlapping set of phenomenon, and it's certainly not something that we should be fighting about. There's enough divisions and disagreements, that we don't need to be taking sides in the dialectic of, if you have to, support this versus that. There remains not a whole lot of disagreement about the fact that these toxins are getting into the atmosphere. They are blanketing us. It is having very detrimental health effects. So we can unpack that a little bit further, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because I don't want TAP as an organization to be seen necessarily taking sides. We're with the Wigington, team versus, the Brain team, versus the Bruce Douglas team, versus even the Jim Lee team, right? Because he has got a very unique perspective on it, which he, articulated on the Del Bigtree show a few weeks back, and even Del himself was, openly skeptical and said that he wanted to remain open-minded as well. And so I think that's the only right approach to take. And of course, the next discussion to have is, how are we going to stop this? And of course, there's a lot to say about what true advocacy and civic engagement look like here in the 21st century. So
Thanks, Bruce. And Trina, your hand, take your hand down, Bruce, so I'm not confused. Trina, thought.
Thank you. I just wanted to say 2 things. I just wanted to welcome our speaker, Bruce Douglas, to the room and thank him for coming on in with us tonight. And I am putting a link to Mike Decker's YouTube channel in the comments of the chat. He has a phenomenal camera. I've never seen anyone get better footage. Well, maybe John Graff out in California, but I'll look for his YouTube channel next. But Mike has actually filmed them going from the white mixture, the white trail in the back, to the black trails. So he really gets good coverage. That's all I
Now,
wanted to
Trina,
say.
are you going to be able to, does he have some examples of some chemtrail deployment?
Yeah, he does, and I'll put them in the chat. That way, if I don't want
Well,
to take up time
okay.
playing video. If
Okay.
Bruce, since Bruce Douglas has joined
Well,
us, I don't know if we
so
want to give him an opportunity to answer questions from last week. I know one question that was on Rumble for you, Bruce. I'll just say hello, and if I have it written down here, it was, if you could show us how to read, could you train us or teach us how to track the satellite imagery? Was one question that was addressed to you last Tuesday, but that's all I
Trina,
have to add. Yes.
Trina, Bruce did actually address that question at the forum, and
With the website, right? There was a science website.
That question did get posed. Bruce did, if I remember correctly, did get to answer. And I'm not saying, I'm inviting people to go to the Rumble and watch the full interview, because Bruce's presentation is very worthwhile. I have two things to say. I want to, go to Bruce Douglas and ask him. I have two things. One, my fellow Oregonian, William Douglas, has posted into the chat. He says, I'm going to drop a link to Harold Kalt Vela's German physicist work. And he says, you're going to be alarmed by what he suggests is happening and why. And there's a YouTube. So the chat is being populated with some very, very interesting stuff. And I want William, here's my challenge to you, William, is to give us the 2-minute elevator condensed, what is it he's saying? What's the headline? So I'm going to come back to you. But I want to go now to Bruce Douglas, because what I represented at the start of this campfire is that there's and you said this yourself, Bruce, that there's a whole bunch of different arguments being made about what is the chemtrail phenomena. And you, to some extent, debunked Mike, I think it's Mike Lee. He was on Del Bigtree, and I recommend finding him on Del Bigtree. And he basically is making the argument that, yes, there's a long history of weather modification, but that the effluence from jet fuel filled with metals is being deposited, and that's what we're witnessing. So I'm going to let you, Bruce, and I'll close with this, and I'll say that the board here at TAP are very excited to have a relationship with the Hawaiians on Maui, you and Paul, for the work you do, and would invite some, that we need to grow TAP, that we need to do the work that you're doing in Hawaii and Maui and take it to the country, take it across, because, and for multiple reasons. And I want you to answer the question, not so much dive into the debate, but what's the business with plasma weaponry? Because you're saying it's not directed energy weapon that's causing some of these fire events, but that there's another technology or a related technology.
Okay.
And it's the technology that Judy Wood represented could have been deployed to cause the buildings to completely turn into dust. Okay, Bruce, give us some thoughts. Please share.
Okay, that was a bunch of questions.
I know.
I'll start with the last one about the directed energy weapons. Directed energy weapons is a subclass of a general category, which is called plasma wave technology. So directed energy is one sort of thing where they concentrate it into a fine beam. Plasma wave can also be a broad beam where you just excite all the molecules in the whole area, so it's very easy to catch on fire. The phenomena we're seeing, if plasma wave or directed energy weapons were used, what would it look like? And you have to realize, what is plasma wave? I'm on a Zoom call. I can't talk. See you, bye. It's what would it look like? Well, plasma wave is a lot like lightning. That's how we see plasma energy here. It manifests as lightning.
Mm.
It's a change of state technology. Lightning can do some strange things. And it changes a state of thing from solid to liquid or from liquid to gas. So if it was used, we would see things, if how a lightning hits a tree, right? When you see the pictures of trees caught on fire by lightning, it's the base of the tree and the inside of the tree that catches on fire. Tree burns from the inside, not the outside, and at the base, because when the plasma energy from the lightning hits the tree, it concentrates at the grounding point at the base, and that's where all the heat happens, and concentrates it there and starts the internal part of the fire. We found 24 trees that were burned from the inside without the outside being burned. Another thing you'd see cars catching on fire because lightning will move toward anything that has density to it. That's the science. So lightning would rather hit that car than that tree, right? So it's going to hit, the energy is going to hit something that has mass and density, which a car has a lot of mass and density to it because it's all steel. So you're going to see cars catching on fire with nothing around it caught on fire. We see lots of samples of that, of cars burned for no reason at all, like there was nothing around it to catch on fire. These are some of the cue points you'd see. You'll see the roof peak of a building catching on fire when the inside hasn't caught on fire yet. We got videos of the peak of the roof of a historical building burning at the peak, but the inside's not on fire. So again, the energy waves, just like lightning, would come down, hit the roof. The question is, how did they deploy it? Was it from a plane, satellite, drone, or the back of a pickup truck, or maybe a less under zero gravity vehicle from the Secret Space Force? We did see there was reports, although we don't have definitive video of it yet, of a helicopter, a big helicopter cruising around that had one of those directed energy things in the front. So it could have been done from a helicopter. Once there's lots of smoke, the helicopter can move in the smoke. It'd have to be a big ass helicopter, which it was because there was a lot of wind. The other thing, from a plane, it could be from a plane flying over the top. You'll see burns and stripes sometimes where you can see where the line went down one thing. We saw a lot of that in Paradise Fire, where there's a line going down, where all the fires are in one straight line. These are the type of things we're looking for in order to prove or disprove, was it directed energy weapons, plasma wave technology, yes or no? So that's in a nutshell on that piece.
Bruce,
yeah.
Do you have anything else? I did pack in the questions. I think what I did, you addressed though this discussion of the weapon, the technology that's being deployed.
Right.
Now talk about then just the second point I'd ask you to address is, are the chemtrails done as Dane Wigington says, and he says that there are, cargo planes from the military unloading this stuff in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have represented that there is technology to unload this stuff from fixed places on Earth, from a ship. And then Mike Lee represents that what's really happening is just environmental pollution from all that jet travel, and all those metals are coming out of the fuel.
Okay, let me take a few of those questions. First off, I'm not denying that chemtrail planes exist and chemtrailing's happening. What I am saying is most of what we're calling chemtrails are actually aerosol trails, where a commercial jetliner flies near an aerosol cloud that was emitted from a boat or land base, in the stratosphere, and the moisture of combustion condenses on the nanoparticles that are already there. So it's a symptom that's aerosol clouds. And when I look at people's chemtrail pictures, most of them I see have aerosol clouds in the background very clearly. So I'm not denying that there's planes that can admit it, but we have flight trackers now, and most of the time you can track what people think is a chemtrail from a commercial airliner. Now, what I did do when I was in Los Angeles at LAX, I went to 2 different fabricators, and I talked to the boys in the back room and asked them, is there any way that you could add some metal particles to jet fuel and have it come out the back of the jet? And they emphatically said, absolutely not. This is so highly purified. We have spectral analyzers on it as it's going out of the thing, making sure there's no impurities, because any impurities in that jet fuel will trash the jet engine and bring the jet down. So it's scientific fantasy that is being added to jet fuel. Just the science doesn't work out.
Right.
There are pictures, those tankers, and everyone basically shares the same pictures around. So yeah, there's tankers that can do it. You know, there's the old silver iodine system from old school systems that are doing it and seeding clouds and in around ski resorts and such. But if you use a flight tracker and that's a commercial jet, you know, you can bet that that's not actually a chemtrail. It's an aerosol trail. It's the de facto moisture of combustion condensing on nanoparticles that are already there from the aerosol clouds that are already there. Now realize when aerosol clouds come across the Midwest and they've been blown off in the middle of the Pacific, by the time they get to the Midwest, it's just a hazy cloud layer at some point. And the hazy cloud is the first to sort of come. And then later you get the finger-like clouds afterwards. So people get the illusion that, oh my God, there's a blue sky. Suddenly there's, you know, chemtrails all over the sky crisscrossing. And then the sky is full of clouds. Well, what's actually happening from my point of view is the wispy, light, hazy stuff comes first. The jets flying near it in the stratosphere, you know, deposit their aerosol trails on it. And then, you know, an hour or 2 later, some more clouds come in and you'll see where there's more clouds in the second pass of what comes in. That's what I've noticed. And everywhere I am in the world, you know, and I go a lot of places in the world, I'm always looking at the satellite images every day. And I'm looking at the sky and I'm observing. When there's no aerosol clouds coming from boats or land bases, there's no chemtrails. Suddenly, when there's aerosol clouds coming in, the sky is full of chemtrails. I've been looking for 20 years now to try to find a real chemtrail where there's no aerosol clouds in the background. I haven't seen it yet. Not to say it doesn't exist. I don't deny people's thing, but if it's a commercial jet, we use a flight tracker and it's a commercial jet laying it, you know, it's an aerosol trail, not a chemtrail. And we just have to upgrade people, open their eyes up, because a lot of people are very invested in the chemtrail thing and they can't see anything else. You know, even J. Michael Herndon, who did the beautiful research on showing that it's most likely coal fly ash that's being sprayed, because the fingerprint of what's raining down on us is the same fingerprint, the same ratios of the same metals found in coal fly ash. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Even he can't get away from the idea they're chemtrails, because you look up and that's what you see. And by God, that's what I see as true, you know? And it's like, well, just like the mirror in the sidecar says, you know, what's it say? Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. You know, what appears may not be what it is. And we have to be ready to take a 180-degree view on some of the views we have and realize that, you know, as we grow up and we get deeper understandings, we have to be willing to throw out the old and move on to the new. And if we don't look at where it's actually coming from, which is really obvious from infrared satellite images, infrared sees heat or reflectivity. So when we're talking, you know, the temperature, as it gets higher and higher, it gets colder and colder. Also, if it's a really dense, it gets more dense, it's brighter. But also, if it's got reflective particles in it, the infrared images will see the reflectivity dominating over the temperature. You know, I used to do infrared scanning on buildings for heat loss analysis. You could only do it at night when there was no sunlight, because any sunlight would reflect against it and mess up the infrared images of trying to see the heat loss that we were doing. I was doing it from helicopters and looking at roofs of buildings and doing it. I'm familiar with infrared systems and how they work. So that's why it dominates. When an aerosol cloud goes off, you can see at a point source, it spreads out and rises up into through the troposphere. What's the wind in the troposphere? 5 to 20 miles per hour. Once it peaks the tropopause, and goes into the stratosphere, it hits the high-speed stratospheric winds. And those winds are like 100, 200 miles per hour. And then it suddenly takes off at high speed at a different direction than the tropospheric winds down below. And it becomes really obvious what's a stratospheric cloud and what's a tropospheric cloud. And as I brought up before, the stratosphere cannot make clouds. There's no moisture up there. The only way to make a stratospheric cloud is to sequester the moisture down below in the troposphere where there is moisture and have it rise up there. So what happens after a volcanic eruption? The metals in the earth becomes nano-anionic, because of the intense heat of the volcanic eruption. It shoots it up in the air, it sequesters the moisture down the troposphere and particulates it, basically nucleates around the nanoparticles, nanometallic particles. It then rises in the stratosphere where, it'll travel around the earth several times for a year or two before it all settles back down after a big volcanic eruption. And what we're seeing with the aerosol release is the same sort of thing. Nanoparticles of ionic particles shot off, more buoyant than air, plus it has some other stuff in it as well to make it buoyant. And there's debates as far as what that stuff is, but there's some other stuff in it to make it buoyant and make it an aerosol. And it rises up into the stratosphere and shoots off in the high-speed stratospheric winds, and it makes clouds in the stratosphere where there shouldn't be clouds. And the other thing about, a chemtrail making cloud, where is the moisture you're creating a cloud from? The massive clouds you're seeing, if you really look carefully at what we call a chemtrail, it after a little while, it disperses just like any other contrail, and it spaces into a little haze. It doesn't actually make clouds. It can't make clouds because there's not any moisture up there to make clouds. You have to sequester the moisture down the troposphere and have it rise up. Now, this is going to be new information. Some people who were very locked into their chemtrail, I'm not denying that chemtrails don't exist. Believe in Santa Claus if you want. I don't care. I'm not here to prove anything to anybody. But open your eyes up to another way where it could be happening that's beyond chemtrails, because if we as a movement keep focusing on chemtrails, we're missing the big thing. And my conjecture is, there's a lot of shills in the chemtrail movement. When I went to the Consciousness Beyond Chemtrail movement, God, I met like 10 different shills, definite hired people, part of Metabunk and all these other organizations, and the place was thick with them, who I believe, if you maintain the chemtrail idea, it's easy to debunk, makes people look like kooks, and isn't what actually is going on to create these clouds. And I think it may be purposely put out misinformation, or just taking the appearance that people see and they think it's coming from the back of the plane, and then building on that, and then getting a bunch of angry people out there, who are full of anger, and put on tinfoil hats and make them all look like kooks. So then you can write the whole thing off. So it's time to graduate from that and actually look, not geoengineering, but look at weather engineering. How are they engineering the weather? How are these storms being engineered? What's the technology behind it? Beyond fantasy, what's the technology? Because it's all just technology.
So Bruce, I'm going to interrupt right there, and that's the tie-in with the Lahaina, because the Lahaina event involved these intense winds. The California fires all involve these intense winds, and so this whole question of geoengineering, the anomalous fires, comes back to these technological capacity and what's going on. Let's go to Linda, Bruce, and then I think Sherry would be the order, and then Trina, maybe. There's 4 hands up. So thank you, Bruce, though, for that. This is we're navigating this fog of war. So Linda, what are you thinking from what you've heard? What's coming up for you right now? What's on your mind? You have to unmute. Uh-oh. You're still muted, Linda. We can come back to you, Sherry. Linda when you get back, we'll put you in line. Sherry, hands up. What are you thinking?
Well, what I'm thinking is what my little gang and I are seeing. And my cousin in St. Louis, she lives in St. Charles. Now, there's a lady up in Tuolumne County here who seems to be an expert with the Flight Tracker 24. And what she's coming up with when she sees those, she hears the plane and she gets her flight tracker out, and it's not commercial planes. What's coming up are geoengineering companies or anonymous. So that's what's coming up. Now, like my cousin Sally is an expert at videoing these in St. Charles, and I can get you guys her photos. And she sees up to 5 to 7 planes not going anywhere. They're just crisscrossing all day long. The same planes on her flight tracker, anonymous, or sometimes they'll have a geoengineering company. They're not going anywhere. So it's not like jets just passing through and that's what's going on, because you can see the plane turn. The same plane is turning. These go. So that to me is, and then I have a question for Bruce about the plasma weapons. Do they not burn blue things? Because a lot of blue things didn't burn. So
there's a lot of blue things that didn't burn, but then there's a lot of blue things that did burn. And then there's a blue roof that didn't burn, but then there's a house right next to it with a white roof that didn't burn. So it's not,
Eric West did a lot of showing us that,
Yeah, I know that, but Paul and I have looked very carefully and looked at all the various things, and we see one blue roof that didn't burn and 3 white roofs right next to it that didn't burn. The blue umbrellas are blue umbrellas that didn't.
And T-shirts that they pulled out of the rubble that were blue. I mean, just
that's based on a laser. That's based on a laser concept, and I don't think it was lasers.
Maybe they
because
both.
laser
They use both.
could have been both.
Could have been
But
both.
lasers would show up too easily. You can't hide a laser being shot from something. It's photons. It doesn't have the same energy. It doesn't have the same energy as plasma weapons. Plasma is like high energy stuff. A laser can only do so much good. Plasma waves can blow up a ship.
You think that's what hit our Texas Panhandle recently too?
I think it's plasma energy because it's way more, the technology is way stronger than laser light. The photons can only do so much. You can't do that much with photons unless you make it really bright and intense in one little thing, and then it's going to scatter in the moisture in the atmosphere and scatter it. It's not going to be intense, and plus you can't hide a laser color because it's photons, it's light. So I don't, from all my science indications, I don't think it was laser light, and that's kind of what the blue thing is based on. So although it's accused,
you saw that one church that you guys got there, you see like that zap line, things like that. And then in the there was right here in Tustin, Peggy Hall's really got a good library and study on these things, and she showed that the old Tustin blimp hangar about 6 months ago, it got what it looks like zapped in the middle of the day. You can see this line, and and they let it burn. They let it completely burn with all that asbestos in it. So could that have been plasma too?
Well, plasma energy is going to be directed towards something that's got mass to it. So a plastic, you may have a blue colored plastic children's playhouse right next to a house, and the plastic didn't burn because it doesn't have any mass to it. The house did burn because the plasma energy goes to that. And it's not like every area is the same. I mean, this ground zero is basically what we were looking for. The places where they probably focused on igniting the fires in the main area they wanted to burn, which was the Front Street area. And that's where we found the biggest concentration of trees burnt from the inside out. We didn't see it in the periphery that got natural fire area that just sort of burned. It was more concentrated on the certain ground zero areas where they most likely use the energy waves.
And then have you studied all the other areas, like the 35 locations in California? And then also
it's really easy to go fly a plane over with plasma energy and just go fire, 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 zap, 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 zap. And you can start 35 fires in 30 minutes by flying over with a plane. And if the plane is cloaked, because they have cloaking technology so you don't see it, you don't even know where it's coming from.
And then same thing as Robert's showing, that the groves of ponderosa pine trees are left intact with the needles? Same thing?
Possibly, still trying to figure all these things out. If the plasma energy was used to ignite it, true. And once it gets lit, I mean, we have our fires here where, it's not that wet, it's not that dry. It wasn't really a drought condition, and so basically all the leaves on the ground burnt, but things up in the tree didn't, because it was just a little brush fire at the base, because it wasn't, a major, tree dry forest fire. So,
But we have whole
but certainly,
trees that are not, my thought of it from, I don't know about the plasma, and I really appreciate learning about it, is that they're spraying, chemtrailing some kind of an accelerant. Some people are calling it sparkle dust or something. And then they're hitting it with something, maybe plasma, maybe some kind of a weapon that's radiation-ish. And then it makes more of a radiation fire. And that's why we can't put water on like a microwave fire or something. You wouldn't want to do that if you had a microwave fire, because it would arc it and make it worse. So it seems to me that that's why the firemen are having a hard time putting it out. But eventually that radiation or plasma or whatever fire peters itself out to where the water does overcome it. And then what's left are these trees. Now, my friend Linda, she was going to try to come on the call, but she's actually at an activist meeting right now up in Washington. She just went and explored the fire up there that was 8 months ago to see what's left 8 months later. There's still evidence everywhere. And so what I said, what I presume you're going to find is all of those needles that were on those trees are now going to be falled to the ground. You're going to have carpets of needles, and that's exactly what she found. But she took pictures of trees that are still standing that look like Halloween. They're like needles are still on it, and especially one with all these pine cones on it, black, but not burnt up, and so it's happening.
Sherry, I'm going to interrupt. You guys, good riffing, good inquiry. Linda Northwest made it back. We tried to reach you. You couldn't connect. Do you hear us? Can you unmute? And do you have a question, Linda? Something to share that we can consider? You have to unmute. You're still muted. You're on a phone. I don't know how to do that. Does anybody know how to counsel Linda on unmuting from a cell phone?
In the bottom left corner of the screen, there will be a microphone that has a red line through it. Just
first she has to tap her picture. She taps on her picture, then the bar will appear on the base. So tap on your picture, and then you'll see the mute button in the bottom left-hand corner.
Linda, you're still muted. You have to tap your picture and unmute by finding the audio button. We don't hear you. Oh.
You can always type your question into the comments, and then we can read it.
If you can reach the chat through your cell phone, I'm going to say good luck, Linda. I feel you navigating technology. Bruce Stanley took his hand down. JB has his hand up. Let's go to JB. And Linda, we're listening for you, Linda. JB, unmute and share.
Yes, thank you so much. This is huge. Tuesday night's program. It's basically all the energy that it takes to produce one of these, and everybody on the TAP board has done an excellent job. We've for the past year and a half, it has just totally exploded for the better. Chuck, is there any way I can do a screen share? I was playing with it before. It's got me blocked.
Yes, Trina's going to make you a co-host, and then you'll have capacity to screen share. And if you want to screen share, you're welcome to, and we'll entertain a thought and a reflection from you on that. And Linda's still trying to call in. Linda, we're going to there's something about the mute, Linda. You have to unmute, and I don't know. It was just suggested. We're going to go right to you, JB. JB's sharing his screen. It's coming through. Select your browser, JB. So we.
Yeah, basically, I don't ask a lot. give me about 20 seconds of silence, and I just want to there's about a half a dozen, 5 or 6 of these just for observation.
So you're going to share some pictures. Okay. All right. Take us through a pictorial, and then Linda, we're going to navigate back to you and figure out
I'm
how
going to
to.
go back to the other question while he's figuring it out. He's getting it. I want to answer about the accelerant idea. The day before the fires in Lahaina, there was a strange white haze that appeared across the island. It was white in color. I'd never seen that before. A lot of other people didn't see it. We took pictures of it and like, what's that? And then the next day the fires happened. Now, it wasn't reflective material like I usually see in aerosols, because when I looked in the infrared screens, I didn't see any sort of thing in the infrared screens. However, when I looked at the Doppler radar screens, which sees the lower elevation, I found that this strange cloud formed off the coast of Baja California and followed across the ocean in this strange cloud formation that's kind of a hazy cloud, and then that hit us with a white haze. Now, I don't know if that's an accelerant or something that they used with some ions in it so that they could create the windstorm, because the winds, again, there were no aerosols in the sky that day that created that the HARP antennas could interact with. So my latest thinking about what was the white haze, I think it was an ionic particle that the radio frequency waves of ionospheric heaters could interact with, which they used in order to create the wind patterns that went this way to that way in all different wonky directions. And there are big gusts this way and big gusts that way, like they do for all these things, because in order to build up a fire, you have to have wind. So that's what I think. It could have been an accelerant, but I think more likely it was ionic particles for helping them create the windstorm.
I just wanted to audio check. Am I good?
We hear you, JB.
Yeah. Well, was everybody? I just put about 7 photos up. Was everybody able to see that?
Now you have to start sharing your screen again because you stopped sharing.
Well, everybody. Oh, hang on a second.
You got to share the screen, and then you got to select what it is you want to open. Usually.
Oh Lord.
It just went to your desktop, but you have to actually, once you share screen, a window should, and then you decide what you want to share within what's open on your desktop.
Well, I just showed about 7. Hang on a
Yeah, it's a
second.
little tricky. You got to practice these screen shares a bit,
The
and get
opposite.
it down.
You have to choose what you're going to show before you click share screen, actually.
Okay, so yeah, put it up on your desktop. Click it first before you open it, and then share screen. Whatever's open on your desktop is what will be shared.
Stand by and pardon my ignorance. I hate computers. Can you see my desktop now?
See your desktop?
Yeah, I put this stuff up earlier. I didn't know if
So
anybody.
now, JB, you need to click on one of the pictures you want us to see. Because we're just seeing your desktop.
Okay. Yeah. Wait a second. Stand.
You have to actually open the picture.
How about
now? Yes. Okay. Bruce, what are we looking at right now?
Those are the pictures that everybody's been sharing for years and years of the same tanker. Everyone shows the same pictures, as that's the proof that there are chemtrail vehicles around. And so I don't know whether they're real or some shills created it and distributed so everyone would use them, but everyone shows that same picture sequence. And yeah, I don't deny those things exist, and I don't deny that there's real chemtrails being sprayed from planes, but that's not the majority of what's happening. The big clouds we see in the sky are not coming from a little poop out of the back of a plane. It's coming from massive ground-based things where you can sequester massive amounts of moisture in the troposphere and have it rise into the stratosphere. And the satellite imagery shows the same thing.
I'm
having computer difficulty here, and I apologize. But basically, it's a half a dozen pictures that are showing that there are indeed there. Aluminum, barium, strontium, all this crap.
Yeah, those pictures have been around for about.
It is indeed being sprayed from tanks, and
those pictures have been being shared for about 20 years now. They've been around a while.
Yeah,
that same sequence of pictures.
But there's, are you saying you think those are fake?
Well, they could be real, they could be fake. I
But
don't
you
really
gotta
know,
remember,
but it's not. We just have to get around the idea
but
that
you gotta
chemtrails is the
remember,
big darn
you
deal.
gotta, but you gotta
Essentially, yeah,
remember that there wouldn't be a lot of these pictures because these are surreptitiously taken by a whistleblower, and they're not going to be widely available. Other pictures, because it's dangerous for them to reveal this stuff. So we're lucky to have that one.
well, the evidence is in your front yard, period. And if, on one day it's crystal blue out, and the next day there's 15 chemtrails. The next day, well, wow, it's crystal blue. People just have to understand. And with all due respect, Bruce, they were spraying that crap. Trina, who was the gentleman we tried to get on Tuesday night? He was interviewed by Dell Bigtree.
That's Jim Lee, JB.
Well, he was the same way. There's no chemicals being sprayed. And I just think, look in your front yard. Thank you.
There's massive, wispy, cotton candy looking clouds out in the middle of the ocean where we are here, out in the middle of the ocean. There are massive quantities of clouds floating, covering the whole sky. That is not coming from the back of a plane. If you look at the source of it on satellite images, you can see the source is from, a point source out in the middle of the ocean, where it rises and goes out like a V from the point source. So I'm not going against anyone's belief system. They can believe what they want. I want you to open your eyes to another way of looking at it and seeing there's another thing happening out there that's actually a bigger deal than chemtrails. And we need to look at the aerosols being emitted from ground bases and land and ocean bases as our main source and start opening up our eyes of perspective.
Let's go
Likely both.
Likely both. So
Likely both.
Likely, but so right. Let's keep going. We got hands up here. Trina's been up for a while. Sherry,
I finally have figured that out.
Linda, yay.
Yeah, I've shut my whole phone down because I don't usually Zoom. I'm right now in the Washington State Republican caucus. They're voting here, and so it might be kind of noisy here. But I've been very concerned about this for a long time. I'm working with Sherry. I've listened to Mr. Lee. I listened to Mr. Lee with Dell Bigtree. And I just want to say that Dell Bigtree got a huge number of comments on that, myself included. I think he is compromised in some way, trying to tell us that it's coming from airplanes. I happen to be sitting this very morning beside an airplane pilot. And I said, what about the chemtrails? He says, well, some people say it's coming out of the airlines. He says, absolutely not, because they're so concerned about weight that they wouldn't put anything into the fuel that would change the weight of the plane. So, the fuel may itself be toxic and have toxic chemicals in it, just like when you drive your car, there's, fumes coming out of the back of that are toxic. So that's kind of normal. I used to live down in Port of Los Angeles. They finally made the big ships that are coming in tie up with they have to plug in because the bunker fuel, yes, that is a huge pollutant. And yes, it can do what he says is change the weather on those trails. But what people are talking about, it's not that. And for him to tell people that that's what it is gaslighting. Okay, those things are happening and that's natural and normal. And maybe he's trying to make it so that people can't travel by plane and that we can't, do trading and stuff, which works right into the West's agenda. I really question him. So what I pictured here, I moved here into Spokane, there is not a hell of a lot of traffic here, like the airplane traffic, like there is in Los Angeles. I have taken many, many pictures, and I've got the tracker app, and I've got pictures of straddle tankers that are U.S. military. They are no responders, no destination. I have tracks of them where they circle and circle and circle and circle. They're not going anywhere, and they're just up there. This, you know, to tell us that what we're seeing is not what we're seeing is the ultimate gaslight, and it really pisses me off, okay? Because we're never going to come to this problem, solve this problem, and get to the issue if we question each other's perception. I think there are many different things that are going on. Against the mountains, you have cloud seeding because those guys are worried about their crops. That's a whole different animal. It's from the ground and it's from small planes. But out here, and I think on the coast of California, you have military planes that are doing this. And there's been many reports where the pilots are coming out and saying that they're told that they're saving the world. All right, and that it's top secret and they're not supposed to speak, and that they're moved time after time after time. They can't stay long in any one area. What else did I want to say? And then you need to go on Telegram to fuck geoengineering. Excuse my French, but that's what the people call it. And there are pictures from across the United States, across the world, where people are posting the same kind of chemtrails that I'm getting. And by the way, they're not all at 30,000 feet. Some of them are at 6,000 feet, okay? And they're not normal air traffic. They're going nowhere. They're coming from nowhere. It's just preposterous for anyone to say to me that that is not what's happening. You've got Bill Gates, who's got trillions of dollars and has made a statement that he wants to dim the sun. Why shouldn't we not believe him? Why are you questioning this phenomenon that is, you see the clouds spread out and you have a not sunny day? It's just unconscionable. And for Mr. Wackerman to be put in jail and made a scapegoat and nobody say anything is also unconscionable. If you want to make a difference in the world, you need to speak out. And I understand you are, but to not look and see for your own eyes what you see. I have to go back in the hall. Thank you.
Linda, thanks for being here and being giving us a testimonial. And I think to go back to Sherry. Oops. Let's go ahead and mute Linda, please. Someone, Trina. There you go, Linda. Thank you. The scapegoat is someone that should be elevated and made a. He's not a whistleblower. He's a scapegoat. He's a made into patsy because they needed someone, and this is the measure of cruelty that we're up against in this struggle. Is cruelty fundamentally, and it's this is a technocracy. We are in a society being run by mad scientists on so many levels, and I'm so let's go to hands. Let's quickly. Let's go to Trina and then Bill and then Sherry. Okay, we're going to do in that order. Trina, what are you thinking?
Thank you so much. Okay. I just wanted to say thank you very much for everyone's perspectives and opinions. As I said, Mike Decker, I just love that guy. I have just put in over a dozen videos. I'm going to believe my eyes. There are things coming out of the planes. He also refers to the flight trackers on the majority of his videos. He's got Emirates, I'm not saying that right, Airlines, DHL. He zooms in so close you can see the writings on the plane. FedEx, Alaska Airlines, 2 U.S. Air Force bombers, American Airlines, Swiss Air, Turkish Airlines, Lufthansa, I'm saying that wrong, Air France, Southwest Airlines, let's see, he has the black coming out the back, FedEx is a big offender, Virgin Atlantic, Airlines, British Airways. So, and then there's also the patent list of geoengineering that I popped in the chat. So I hope everybody will save this chat and view those videos, because there is no doubt in my mind that the plumes I'm seeing aren't planes flying through clouds, but they are laying down trails. That is what I stand on.
Thank you, Trina. I'm glad you're willing to take a position. It means you got some spine. Bill, what's your thoughts?
I don't know.
What was that, please? I'm sorry. I think you broke up.
Here we go. Okay.
No, I wanted to hear what Bruce's reply was. Just one sec, Bill. I didn't hear what he said. He broke up. Connection.
I'm sorry. I was actually replying to somebody else here. I'm
Oh,
trying to set up
okay.
for Earth Day on Sunday, so I'm trying to
Oh,
run a
okay. I
Freudian
thought you were
circus here.
replying to me. Okay, never mind.
But I can reply to you, because I'm not saying that chemtrails don't exist. Okay. They obviously, there's tankers, obviously it's sometimes happening. But I'm saying most of what we're seeing, it's not Lufthansa or Delta Airlines or commercial airliners that are doing it, because you can't add something to a jet fuel. The huge stratospheric clouds that we're seeing circling around the Earth are not coming from planes. They're coming from boats and land bases, primarily boats.
Mostly. You're being
mostly
absolute in your statement, correct?
I'm saying most of that stuff, because there's huge quantities of clouds banks coming across the country in the stratosphere, going across the ocean in the stratosphere. Okay, the source of those are from aerosol generators on boats and land bases, not from the back of a plane. Now, it's not to say that there aren't crisscrosses that happen in certain areas and whatever, but that's not the majority of what we're looking at. And we have to start shifting our thing from little lines in the sky to the massive cloud patterns that are moving across the country, because that's the elephant in the room. Well, that's the big fish to look at.
So I accept what Bruce is saying. The big fish to look at, he's alleging, and he showed pictures, that there are ground-based, ocean-based shipping operations. And it kind of makes sense if you subscribe to the coal ash theory for material to put up there. That's a lot of weight to fly up into the air and deposit. It'd be a hell of a lot cheaper and easier to blow it up, like he's saying. So again, TAP is not going to, get lost in the weeds or the forest, or not failing to see the trees. But this is important details, nuance, and we're going to sort through this, and we're going to debate it, and we're going to go. Who's next on our share list here? I think Bill gets to go, Sherry, and then Bruce. Thank you, Bruce Douglas, for I hear you, and it's intriguing. Bill, what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about the nature of truth and what truth means in the truth movement. I think we're talking about a scientific question, and Bruce has approached this like a scientist. Other people have approached the topic, presumably as scientists. I don't know everybody's biographies or pedigrees, but I think if we learned anything from the whole COVID debate or discussion over the past 3 or 4 years, it's that we get into trouble when we replace scientific inquiry with beliefs and dogmas. The whole point of science is to constantly be questioning things. So when someone said, I think Bruce and others said it, that there may be multiple explanations, that is certainly the case. Science thrives by having multiple theories, right? I'm no big scientist, but I think we all should know that. And instead of the only thing I would have questioned, Bruce, when you said, I don't want to question anybody's belief systems. This really shouldn't be about belief systems one way or another. And I don't think that's how you're approaching it. But I certainly have a simple explanation that for the discrepancies that people are raising is that things may be going on different things may be going on in different places at different times. I mean, if we have Bill Gates and we have the U.S. Air Force and God knows who else involved in this thing, is there really only one technology, only one experiment, only one set of planes? So that's an uncertainty. Decals and paint jobs on planes can be done artificially if that's a factor in a particular theory. So on the science part, there's two sides to this. There's the science side and the political side, but the political side should be based obviously on the science. So, you know, one of our slogans in TAP is respectful dialogue. That really in part means not just being polite, but scientific dialogue. Several of you are reporting different sets of observations and different sets of photographs. They all require an explanation. They don't necessarily require the same explanation. So the multiplicity of phenomena that you're seeing is they're valid as observations. The explanations are what science is all about. So let's keep our keep our shirt on and let science work, and let's try to encourage the scientific process. And maybe there'll be more than one explanation. The only other thing I wanted to ask, and this is a question for you, Bruce. I'm down in Costa Rica, and just a minor thing, but to me important, that you mentioned was about the stratosphere and the troposphere. You talked about that more on Tuesday. When I sit on our deck, I always see clouds going in opposite directions. One cloud is going left. There's another one higher going to the right. Can I infer from what you said, and I don't dispute it if it's the case, that the higher ones are always above 30,000 feet, or almost always above 30,000 feet? Because I didn't make the observation, but I'll go back and look. That
well, it's hard to tell from the ground what the elevation of a cloud is.
That's for sure.
You know, now if you see the noctiluminescent clouds that I brought up, where they, you know, the sun's already set, and then these 30,000, 40,000 foot clouds light up from the underside, that's a really good sign. You know, look at the conjecture, see if it's like your Costa Rica, so it's going to be fairly fresh off the ocean. So the stratospheric winds are going to be coming from the west to the east. Okay, and your lower clouds are going to be going different directions because that's in the troposphere. So, you know, if those ones are going from the east, from the west to the east, off the ocean, on the land, on the west coast of Costa Rica, and they seem to be high elevation, and they're wispy looking, cotton candy, gooey, stringy looking clouds. Those are probably stratospheric aerosol clouds. There's a lot of stuff being generated, floating across the world. And when people start looking at satellite images instead of just what appears in the sky, but actually start looking at the science, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's massive quantities of stuff being blown off the ocean, floating over the area.
Just a quick follow up on that. I would like to think that things were cleaner down here, but I know on the ground they're certainly not. So, but if I'm seeing clouds going in two different directions, am I understanding your argument correctly that the upper ones are probably what do we call them, aerosol clouds?
Yes,
because that couldn't happen unless they were over 30,000 square feet. And
yeah, generally speaking, if you really know, if you're flying in a plane, they're higher than planes fly, then that's your telltale sign.
Yeah. Okay.
If you get to the top of a 10,000 foot mountain and they're way the heck up there, yes, that's where it is. And if you see the noctiluminescent clouds, correct. If you look at your West satellite images and see where they're generated from, you know, and then look up at the same time, so you know where they're coming from, that's another way to tell. So there's a lot of things you got to look at to make sure we don't get fooled. And, you know, because it can also be, there are jet streams, you know, which travel between the stratosphere and the troposphere, an area called the tropopause in between. And those can contain some clouds. They're just at the very top of the troposphere. So things, got to make sure we're not jumping at assumptions, which is what I'm always careful not to jump to assumptions. I always like check it through a couple different ways to make sure what I'm seeing is
Bruce, I'm going to interject.
Not just appearance.
Thank you for that clinical approach you take to this question, and we're going to keep recognizing hands that are up, and there's a number of hands that have come up. So. And we're coming on 6 where we've been at this an hour and a half, and we're good for 2 hours. But at some point we're going to end our evening. So is it Bruce Stanley or Sherry. I don't remember the, let's go to Bruce Stanley. Bruce, Bruce brought in Justin Harvey, and I was so delighted. And let me just say this. I want our evening to close on prospects for political action. And I'm going to actually be interviewing someone tomorrow just on my own. That's a truther. And I'm going to make a remark about that. But so I don't want our evening to end on the technicalities of what's going on. I want it to end on what truth action can we take and build on that. So let's just Bruce and then Sherry. And then John. Bruce, please, what are you thinking?
Thanks, Chuck. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think Bruce Douglas here has done a pretty good job clarifying his position, and I think it's relatively uncontroversial and fact-based. It just got me thinking about how, I mean, if we have these, again, we have to think like scientists, right? So if we have a FlightAware app, okay, and we're watching something that we think is a chemtrail, and we see that it's being created by a commercial jetliner, we've got a problem, because now we're implying that the commercial airlines are in on it, in addition to the military craft. That's making a pretty exotic argument that the commercial airliners are somehow involved in this, are attaching the sprayers on all the commercial airlines. It doesn't make any sense. But I did want to say, I did want to make this point, though, is that when I was going out there and researching the subject, there are actors out there who make the claim that it is additives in the jet fuel, and they have very science-y looking charts and graphs to back up their arguments. So that is one of those wedge issues, areas of disagreement where you can see these very furious debates playing out about additives. But if we follow you know, what Bruce is saying here, it doesn't make sense to imply that the commercial airliners are in on it as far as attaching any kind of spraying apparatus to their planes. So then therefore, how is it that commercial airliners can visibly be creating what we think and are referring to as chemtrails? I mean, it makes a lot of sense what Bruce is saying here. So I just wanted to just say, like, because, you know, for example, whereas Jim Lee's theories seem maybe a little bit more exotic. Do you have an opinion on he shows the photographs of all of the he suggests that when truthers share those photographs of the barrels with chemicals that are in the back of these cargo jets, you know, that those are actually ballast adjusters that are completely normal. The patents are on there, and there's nothing suspicious about all those photos that show, you know, the containers with what are purported to be, you know, different types of chemicals. You know, I don't know if you have an opinion on that. And at some point before we do close out, I would like to get to a 2-minute clip of David Keith on the Colbert Report advocating geoengineering in a very creepy kind of way. It's just one of those things that I think provides some context to the overall discussion. So I would like to get at that at some point, but I don't want to jump in front of everybody else's hands. Those are only a couple points that I wanted to make. But I don't know if Bruce, if you have a very brief, direct response before we get to our other hands to that question. Do you have an opinion on the question of you know, the tanks in the back of these supposed cargo jets? You know, do you agree with Jim Lee on that? That, you know, those are just ballast adjusters, nothing suspicious here, or do you think he's wrong on that?
I don't know, and really, I don't want to look at the small stuff. I want to look at the big fish. The big fish is what's coming out of boats and land bases. That's the big fish. That's what I'm looking at. That's how I'm watching weather engineer happening. You know, you know, that's the reality, what's happening out there. That's what I see in the hurricanes. That's what I see in the big storms. You know, that's what I'm seeing. And I've seen enough, you know, no aerosols, no chemtrails, aerosols in the sky, full of aerosol trails. I've seen that everywhere I go enough times. That's the primary thing. But I don't want to argue with people about do chemtrails exist or not. Like, well, whatever, believe whatever you want. But let's look at the big fish. Let's look at the big elephant in the room, which is what's coming from aerosol generators down on the ground level, sequestering moisture and rising up the stratosphere. Let's look at the big fish.
Let's look at what's in the stratosphere. Thank you very much, Bruce, for making that point. Let's go to Sherry. So as we're wrapping up, let's be mindful of to the point. And I want someone, though, to be ready to give me a report on state legislation around opposing this chemtrail business. And so, Sherry, what are you thinking?
Well, I know Tennessee has outlawed it, and there's 6 other states that are following. Like, one is New Hampshire, I'm not quite sure. One of the Dakotas, I'm not quite sure. But what I could do is share my screen. When I went out to my backyard, not about a month ago, I saw a blue canvas. I'm a painter, so I think of it like a canvas. And then I saw the planes crisscrossing, not going anywhere. And I just had put on my little above ground pool a brand new black swimming pool solar cover, perfectly blue black, just beautiful. I went out there, and I can share my screen. I've got it in a container here. There was white silver dust all over the pool cover. So I pulled the pool cover off and sat on the lawn and spooned it into this container. But it's like a white silver dust. And I tested the pH on it, it's pure acid. Now, when I test my rainwater or my soil, it's pure alkaline. So I don't know what all that means, but it totally ruined my pool cover, stained. I tried scrubbing it with the brush and everything, and it's something is on there. I don't know what it is, but I'll bet you it's aluminum. So, and
So,
I,
Sherry,
you know,
let me interrupt you because I'm feeling anxious as we're approaching the end of the
but
hour.
anyway, thank you.
No. What you're raising is an important detail. We had an event up here in Oregon, extreme wind event in a freeze event that put a lot of people out of power. It was stress and traumatic. And part of what I think an underlayment of all of this is the shock and awe of these events. And you're getting into the woods around, or the weeds around what is depositing on us. Hold that thought. I regret that I didn't collect snow sample during the event that happened here in Oregon.
I've seen pictures of now that snow. You can make a snowball, bring it in and take a acetylene torch, and it will not melt.
There was a snow patch
it's amazing.
There was snow in a parking lot that lasted 6 weeks after the end of the freeze event. 6 weeks, it was still there. I didn't collect it. Okay, so I'm getting excited here because I want to start talking about what can we do as truth projects, from everything from TAP could become a repository for, hey, here's the chemical sky I'm looking at, and we could become, bearing witness testimony.
Right. Well, if you put a piece of black plastic, stake it out like a trash can bag or something on your ground, stake it out for a while, see what deposits on there. Otherwise, it's going into the soil. I teach science, so I'm always doing. I had a fireman tell me that pine trees were becoming fire retardant. So I went out in my backyard and I made a bonfire and I pulled pine trees off and I videoed a little experiment. I put it on my Rumble channel. I have like 600 views on it now. The people had to think about common sense that pine trees they're very flammable. But people are actually, I talked to a fire captain who really believes that they're becoming fire retardant.
So you're talking about the shifting narrative and the manipulation of thought of how people are thinking about what's happening.
Yes.
And this action project is about bearing witness to what's true. So let's hold thoughts and let's understand that what we're doing here is grappling with, and where do we go with. Let's go to John and then JB. John Olson, please take your hand down and share.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't have an answer to your question about where we go from, but I want to make several short points. Number one, I certainly agree with Bruce that the added addition to the fuel is not an explanation. I accept that. I have, in my own experience, a couple of times seen at the same time, in the same atmosphere level, one plane that has normal contrail, which is the condensation after a normal jet plane goes through. At the same time, another plane that had the characteristic chemtrail, which does not dissipate. This is one thing that hasn't been addressed, is the what we are calling the chemtrail do not dissipate readily. It takes hours, whereas a normal contrail dissipates at the same rate that the plane goes. Okay, next point. I have seen also, or either pictures or in person, where a plane is going across with the trail and then it stops and it goes again at the same time. There'll be a gap in what's happening, like it's a stop and go. So something is coming out of the planes. Third point, fourth point rather. Well, that's it. That they hang in the sky for a long time, as opposed to the normal contrail. And last point, if coal ash is the component of what's causing this, presumably, if we follow what Bruce is saying, how would it get from the ground level up to the stratosphere? The coal ash is not going to be that light. I would think it would be heavier than air.
So let me respond to each one of those really quickly for you.
Okay.
The different heights, I'm going to be really brief.
Yes.
Planes fly at different heights. So if there's a plane flying at 25,000 feet and one flying at 40,000 feet, the 40,000 one's probably going to be in the aerosol cloud, and it's going to create the trail. Military jets tend to fly higher than commercial. Second point, what was the other thing you said?
Well, the stop and go. I mean, you've seen that there's a gap between.
If you look at carefully, you'll see that it stops when there's no more aerosol clouds in the sky, and it picks up again when the aerosol clouds are happening. So if you look more carefully and you look behind what you think is a chemtrail, you'll see an aerosol cloud. And where there's no aerosol cloud, there's no aerosol trail. Where there's an aerosol cloud, you'll see aerosol trail.
Let me just.
My point is, let's quit looking at chemtrails. Let's look at the big fish.
Bruce, I agree that we look at the big fish, but we also have to look at the detailed argument and what's. Well, let me just remark, and I love this kind of debate. We're in the weeds here, and that's fine, and we can have fun here. It's almost preposterous to me to represent that an airplane. So what's been represented on my Yahoo news feed, and this is mainstream media reports that the reason you see these chemtrails, which they call contrails, but they actually, this newsfeed said, well, it's because the airplanes are flying through effluents. They acknowledge that there's effluents that the planes fly through, and that when they fly through that effluents, they leave the trail. And that's what you're saying, and that's what mainstream media says, but it's also, it adds up because there's obviously effluents up there. Now, is the effluents mostly being deposited by the ship-based, ground-based things that eject it into the atmosphere? And you showed us those compelling pictures that show those mushroom cloud things. There's great force, and if they're light enough, certainly they would carry up that high, like the force of a volcano and so on. I get it, and but to say it's such an odd event that there could be a gap in space in the troposphere, or the strata, wherever the fuck that airplane's flying, that it could suddenly produce or reveal, let's reveal the effluents, and then there's this kind of magical space where there is no effluents to be revealed, and then all of a sudden it magically reveals effluents. So I love the Shakespearean, literature trope for what appears to be is not what it is, and this is a great place to be, because where I also take this away is the whole Judy Wood phenomena to create the division in the truth movement of 9/11, and TAP started with 9/11 TAP, 9/11 Truth, and Judy Wood has been a great divisive force, but she introduces the theory, and the theory of plasma energy was applied. It wasn't just thermite to break the columns, but it was an actual reality spatial differential explosion that evaporated all the concrete into dust. John Olson made the observation that the building 7 that collapsed didn't produce the dust that the Twin Towers produce. And these are really fun, exciting questions we should delight in and not ever let us divide us. But because what we know is we're being lied to. This is the fundamental point. We're being lied to. And then what do we do living with these lies? So, and that's what I want to close the evening on. We're so rapidly approaching it because we close the evening, we close the lies with action. And I got to post into the chat the event. I'm hosting an event. I'm interviewing Michael Diamond. Bill knows Michael Diamond. He's on the board of NARM, National American Renaissance Movement. He has a theory of basically prosecuting the liars, the people that aren't protecting the country, the people in government that aren't protecting the country that took an oath to do that. These are actions that we, the people, can take at our county level. We could be organizing, and this is what TAP wants to do. I think Colonel McGregor wants to do it too, and I think there's a movement to do this. It's in the zeitgeist, as was remarked earlier in the evening, to get accountability. So, Terry, I'm going to go to Terry. She hasn't spoken. Then we're going to go to JB. We're wrapping up. Terry, what are you thinking? You have to unmute.
It's my computer's running slow because I've been grabbing a bunch of links and stuff, but I wanted to end on a photograph, but what somebody just said about, these people having sworn oaths of office to protect us, turns out they're showing a lot of evidence now that those oaths of office are not legit. They never really did, because there was no notarization, or there was no signature, or it wasn't done properly, and it's not legal. Anyway, I wanted to show this one image. To me, it just gives me goosebumps when I see this image. Is there a way I can show this? Trina, are you giving the ability to do that?
Trina would give you.
Yes, ma'am. Can you go for it, please?
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna see here, screen share. Got it pulled up already. This. Let's see if you guys can see this. There goes my computer. It's being really slow again. The ball's just spinning and spinning and spinning. But can you see this image?
No, not yet.
Can you see it now?
No. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a patch, obviously, of a pilot, and obviously he's not wearing it on his clothes for some reason. I don't think I'd walk around with that on my shoulder either. I'd probably get killed by somebody or hit over the head, but don't just spray them, bury them. And then it has that tombstone with the elemental signature of barium on it. And we know that's what they're dumping. And then, of course, that plane flying through the clouds there. So
where did you go, Chris? What is this? What are we looking at exactly?
It's a patch. It's like
it's a military patch.
Yeah. And so this to me shows their intention behind what they're doing, or at least some of the pilots, maybe not all of them, but at least some of the pilots know what they're doing, and they're out to kill us.
Well, okay. No, so I get this is so here's let's just hold this image for a moment.
Let
me just I'm going to quickly remark.
Stop sharing
okay.
it.
I took it down. I thought it was
fine. Thank you, Carrie. And thank you, Trina. And let me just say this, that picture, so what that picture does, so I'm deconstructing what I just saw. I saw a patch.
Can you pop that in the chat too, Terry? Can you go ahead and drop that image? Thank you.
No, I can't. I've tried to do that before. It doesn't work.
Oh, okay. All right. Never mind.
I'm I'm just thinking out loud. I saw a picture of a patch that should be attached, and we'll go to William after this. And then JB, hold on, please, and then hold your thought. Write it down. The patch shows something that should be attached to someone's shoulder. You know, their coat. They would wear it proudly. Okay, but if they wear that proudly, then they're revealing themselves that they're doing this operation. And yet we're showing a patch that's not attached, that shows an intention. I accept what you're saying, and kind of and means that the people in the military are secretly being, financed and operated if this is the globalist culling, the killing off of, but it's complete ecocide. It's not just humans, it's everything. And that's what's crazy about this. And that's so TAP can't go into the deep unspeakable. I mean, we're talking about it right now. But TAP's not going to go public with this and beyond what was happening in this recorded Zoom video thing here. But it's wicked and evil, and we're grappling with that as truthers, and I want to acknowledge that. But we're going to be very cautious about where we go and taking this on. And we're going to go over our 2-hour hard close, I think, on this. I'm not going to insist on that because I do want to talk about Truth Action Project around facing off with this. William, what are you thinking based on what you just witnessed and heard from Terry?
Well, it's certainly been an enjoyable experience being a part of this presentation and discussion. But you asked me earlier if I could give a quick recap of what Harold Kurzweiler's video explained.
Yes,
and
please.
I will do that very quickly. And I'll start with Prince, the artist formerly or once known as Prince, Roger Nelson. He once was interviewed and he said, I remember growing up, I used to see all the families walking down the street. They'd all be getting together, but all of a sudden, on occasional evenings, there'd start to be a lot of arguing, a lot of fighting, a lot of yelling, and you'd start to see it like something that was just spreading down the block. He literally said this in the interview. And would you know, I'd go outside and I look up and I'm like, wow, what's these airplanes up in the sky, letting out? And this is just an interview he did. We all have different experiences in life, but this is an explanation he provided. And Harold Kurzweiler says that, with the different types of technology in this, silent weapons for silent warfare age, 5th and 6th generation technology warfare, one of the biggest key things they can do is they can make people filled with a sense of hopelessness. They can make people have a sense of dread, uncertainty, almost like the film that was presented us by the Obama production company, Leave the World Behind. It was like an Alfred Hitchcock kind of vibe. It's a certain uncertainty of what's going to happen, but a constant incitement of dread and fear and apprehension. And that's a very good way of controlling people. Propaganda is one of the tools that they most use. And Harold Kurzweiler suggests that there's technology that could potentially exist from his research, that our behavior can be manipulated. If you have a group of individuals who are experiencing a certain behavior, you can take the biorhythmic signature from these individuals, and using different technology, one of the applications necessary for this technology is suggested to be the stratospheric aerosol injection programs in conjunction with other patents, not limited to, but including cell phones, Gwen towers, things of this interesting and eccentric nature. But that in an event you can, in one way, absorb and record through the biorhythmic signatures and other energetic signatures that the body provides during these states of apprehension. And then in a way you can figure out how to redistribute and broadcast those same types of emotions and states of feelings to people at large, 10, 20 million people. It's almost like these weapons that are used to control riots. And there's other events that have occurred where even enemy combatants have said, we heard a voice from above tell us to drop our weapons and surrender. We don't truly know the extent of the technology that exists. We just know what's in the public domain. And so Harold Vela says that they would love the opportunity, certain individuals perhaps would love the opportunity to even change the natural frequency of the planet we live on. Because when we feel like we've been in the city too long, we try to unplug, we leave and we go out into nature so we can detox and tap back into nature. But if they could change the frequency of nature, even they would have even greater control over us. And so Harold Kaltzvela suggests that as part of a multifaceted program, that one of the agendas behind chemtrails could be just that, to change the way people feel, to almost create a automatic response to the different stimuli they see occurring around them. So Dr. Richard Allen Miller, physicist who's worked with NASA on the Mars projects, has said that lithium is one of the chemicals you have found in these chemtrail systems. And that's a wonderful way to suppress people's responses. And so if nothing else, or at least in one other additional way to consider what these things are capable is of manipulating us and stopping us from, coming to the necessary emotions that are necessary for us to have motivation to change and do something. But if we use music, if we use the things that we enjoy, there are still ways that we can break free of these electronic systems, this manipulation, just by doing simple things, playing music, playing guitar, playing drums, tapping back into that which makes you feel your best. And your love vibration is the thing that can break any of these other systems, no matter, regardless of how powerful their designers believe they are. He states that love is in fact the way that we can make these systems almost obsolete. We have to detox from the heavy metals that we're exposed to. We have to maintain adequate rest and nutrition, but love is also a powerful tool for our healing. I want to thank you for the time, and that's a short invitation to what Harold presents in his multiple videos over the course of the last 7 to 10 years.
Okay. William, I think we're going to wrap up on that, and we're going to end the recording, but we're going to hang out for some further chat time. So there's no rushing away, but we're going to end the recording. But JB, what are your thoughts?
Yes, Chuck, we were talking earlier. Actually, let me do a screen grab if I can. Stand by. And everybody,
are you going to say an official close, Chuck, before we turn off the recording?
Yes,
yeah,
please.
Okay, go ahead, JB.
Take away the you got all those icons covering up what you want us to see, JB. You got to disappear it.
This one?
We're seeing the favorites. Yeah, there you go. So Tennessee and other states introduced bills to outlaw geoengineering. Thank you, JB. This is direct political action from our legislatures. Our state legislatures are the last bastion of political control against the globalist emerging techno-totalitarianism. That we, the people, can and do have access to our state legislatures. And it's a rebellion of the states, I think, that we need to be also considering in all of this, and the sovereign rights of states to control their medical practices, to control the technologies that are deployed in their midst and so on. Oh no, JB, we just lost your share.
No, that's fine. That's all I wanted to show. I also, wait a second. Can I get back on screen share? Dang it. I hate computers once again. All right, can you see me?
Yeah. Yes.
Gosh dang it. How can I get that off of there? Anyway, I'm going to scroll through these. I know Bruce mentioned these were the ones that are most commonly seen. But give me just about 20 seconds. I just want everybody to absorb this material. I'm sorry about that thing in the middle of the screen.
So JB, as you pass through these pictures, I'm going to narrate, and that these pictures clearly demonstrate that these are passenger airliners that are outfitted with containers that hold substance that have some intended purpose. Jim Lee represented, when he saw those pictures, that those pictures of containers would have been a ballast to test fly an airplane for human, weight control analysis. And so and this is an emitter device. So we're not going to absolutely, we're going to be agnostic on what absolutely 50, 90, 110, 5% is creating the obvious fake cloud system. What's happening is, and this is my closing, and we're going to wrap up on this, is that where the tap taps into the zeitgeist around the issue that we're being lied to. And we don't need to definitively say what exactly is going on in our skies, but what's evidently a fact is that stuff is there that's not natural. And TAP could be providing the clearing for people to give testimonials for what they see. This is, this would be either on our Facebook site, here's my thing, blah, blah, blah. We could introduce this, or we could, and these platforms already exist. So I need help in making a closing kind of wrap up here. We're going to just end our recording. And then we're going to stick around for some extra chat time. I guess I'm going to close with this remark that something really bad is happening, and the world is currently run by an oligarchic technocracy. We have mad scientists doing stuff in the interest of control. We, the people, need to stand up and take back. That's what a movement looks like. And we're going to keep this conversation going around that. I have put into the chat a conversation I'm going to have tomorrow evening with Michael Diamond, and he has a whole theory about basically citizen groups actually appealing to the county prosecutor to advance prosecutions of people that are telling these lies and doing bad things to us, we the people, and to the planet on multiple levels, from the COVID to the geoengineering to the arson fires that have been set, California, Lahaina, and Chile, and all around. So this is a final thought. I'm going to say I'm Chuck Fall. I'm talking at TAP Campfire. We host every Friday. Every Friday, Campfire comes after our TAP Forum on Tuesday, a monthly event. You can get our stuff on Rumble. Like us, share us, donate to the cause. We're building movement, and we're building the infrastructure for political truth movement. So I'm Chuck Fall. This is TAP. Anyone want to make a final blessing of remark? John Olson had his hand up. Please share. Unmute. And then William, make a final remark.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So I was just real quick. One thing that didn't show in those pictures is the 4-foot fan at the back of the plane, which I saw a long time ago. So that's all. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you, John. William,
I have no further statement. Just wanted to give my applause to the event. Thank you all very much.
Okay, so let's just do
Bruce,
this.
do you want to say anything before we close?
Just wanted to say, everybody make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at truthactionproject.org so you can get all of our latest updates and event announcements straight in your inbox.
Very good. All right.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm going to stop the recording and the live stream. Give me just a second.